perched high on a bluff in the Spokane Valley, sits a remarkable home, conjured equally by nature, wealth, and imagination. Inventor and mechanical innovator Royal Riblet built this place as his residence in 1924. This Florentine-styled home just turned 100. Iowa native Royal and his oldest brother Walter followed their brother Byron, who came to the Northwest in 1885 after graduating from the University of Minnesota's Civil Engineering program that same year.
Byron Riblet came here first. He was working for the Northern Pacific Railroad at that point and other railroads back east, but as it expanded, came to Spokane, and anybody with a lot of talent, civil engineering or whatever, pretty soon you're doing other things. He platted out some of the early electric rail lines here, and then platted out some of the early additions to the town. He was a hydraulic engineer. He engineered the Upriver Dam in the 1890s for the city, and other ones across the state too.
Founded in Spokane, Washington in 1908, the Riblet Tramway Company grew to be one of Spokane's largest, creating an economic ripple effect, producing jobs up and down the line for businesses that produced wares for the company.
It was a big company in Spokane, so it actually helped a lot of other businesses as well. A big economic booster for the town. Riblet first started off basically as an engineering company to draw out the plans for these things. They didn't actually make them themselves, and so they supported the other businesses in the area. Originally, they started with mining tramways, because in the 1890s, a lot of the Spokane people that were here were wealthy mine owners. He went up into Canada first and started designing tramways to get the minerals out.
With Byron, the brains behind the Riblet Tramway business, and his brothers as salesmen, the Riblets' business grew worldwide until the late 1920s, when the company was forced to restructure as tramway orders declined with the impending stock market crash of 1929.
In the 30s, the ski industry was kind of just coming around. Actually, the story is Byron Riblet was talked into doing these ski lifts by a guy that worked for him. So, and he thought it was just kind of a play toy. But then after they got into it, he could see that this could become something big, and it did, basically saved the company.
In 1933, Royal was disassociated with the company, but retained his shares. His brothers Byron and Walter operated the business into the future.
I think Royal and Byron, there was probably a split in the 20s. So both of them kind of invested in other companies as well. So maybe that put a wedge in between. But in the mid-30s, they had some issues, and apparently they never talked again. So even though Royal still owned 40% of the company, he probably just got a paycheck, and he actually started his own company to to go in, against the other firm. So, but it didn't really pan out for Royal in that regard.
The first Riblet chairlift was built in 1939. The lifts grew to become a major part of their business, with installations worldwide. One such installation was at the International Exposition in Spokane in 1974. One lift was designed to move people over and across the expo grounds, while another tram was an enclosed gondola that traveled over the Spokane Falls.
That was one of the biggest things at Expo, was those rides, as far as profitable, and everybody rode them, so it was a big draw to have the Riblet Tramway Company go in and put those in.
The connection of the Riblet organization with the Spokane area and the very visual home in the Spokane Valley both help tell the story of the brothers who built a business that in turn put the Spokane area on the map in the tramway business. With the purchase of an 83-acre tract of land, Royal decided to build his home on the solid basalt rock cliff on the property. He worked with Spokane architect George Keith, and in 1925 fashioned a place that would get people's attention.
Well, of course, it made the newspapers, and a lot of visitors. Thousands of visitors went there. Everybody could see it, obviously, you know, from the valley below. So made him look kind of like a king, I suppose. You know, he had a pretty big ego. He was flamboyant, so he wanted to be seen, obviously.
2 years after constructing the home, he built a gas-powered tramway that spanned from the cliffs to the north side of the Spokane River.
Well, I think just another one of those things to kind of show maybe who he was. You know, it wasn't really practical. A lot of people over the years said that, you know, he every day he went to work, that he got on that thing and he went down and, you know, drove to town, kind of like it was the only way to get up there. But it wasn't like it was the only way to get there. It was more of a, I would say, a prop, you know. And it was built a couple years after the house was put in, so maybe he was trying to promote the company too.
The tram, some would say of dubious quality, was removed in 1956. In 1945, Walter dies. In 1952, Byron dies. And in 1960, Royal dies. 3 brothers collectively leave a company and a legacy that has lasted well over 100 years. Royal's home, originally named the Eagle's Nest or Tramway Hill, sells in 1984 to Arbor Crest Winery to become the Arbor Crest Cliff House and is listed on the National Register of Historic Places.
It's very impressive, yes. So that's a great view. You go up there and you can see the whole valley, and you can imagine in the 20s looking down and seeing everything wide open with the farms and the Hutton settlements right down there, and that's a beautiful view. So that helps tell the Riblet story, the whole story, you know, because you see the house and then you kind of want to know who built it, why they built it, how they had the money to do it. My hope is that the Riblet story, especially with the house on the hill there, that people see that and it drives them to want to know more.